He wore gloves on every finger, masked his face, blocked the camera lens. He covered every angle of a rehearsed crime until his movements became automatic, practiced, and calculated. The kind of fluid efficiency that does not belong to amateurs. He thought about cameras. He thought about DNA. He thought of the mask, the backpack, his gun holster, and the escape route. He thought of absolutely everything, but he forgot the ring. A single frame, number 47, captured by the Nest camera at precisely 1:47, February 1st, 2026. His right hand reached out toward the lens, and right beneath that tight black glove, pressing against the latex, capturing 6 seconds of infrared light in a way that no criminal in human history ever planned. A pinky ring, a gold band with a center gem, size 9, worn at all times and everywhere, worn on the very night he walked right up to the entrance of an 84-year-old woman's home in Catalina foothills, and shattered absolutely everything that made this world feel ordinary. And now, 75 days later, records from Tucson jewelry stores finally produced a name. Before we talk about that ring, before we discuss Frame 47 and what it reveals, where it led, and what those Tucson jewelry stores confirmed, we must first set the stage the right way. We have to begin exactly where this story starts. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born on January 27, 1942. Just 4 days before she vanished, she turned 84, and her family celebrated it with her. Her daughter Annie and son-in-law Tommaso were there. They spent that birthday together. They were together on that Saturday afternoon, before she vanished. They had dinner and played mahjong. Just a regular Saturday, the kind of evening that had already happened 100 times and would happen 100 more. But this time, it didn't. Nancy Ellen Guthrie had lived in the greater Tucson area for over 5 decades. She first moved there with her family back in the early 70s. She found her church, her own community, her weekly routines, her Saturday nights, and built a whole life right in the Catalina foothills neighborhood. The kind of quiet, wealthy, and highly secluded suburb where massive million-dollar homes sit, occupy half-acre lots, and the biggest threat to your morning is just a coyote crossing your driveway. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of the NBC Today Show, a woman whose face is the first thing that the United States sees on television every single weekday morning. But Nancy herself does not belong on TV. She is an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker monitoring her heart, and hearing aids she takes out at night, and daily life-saving medications she cannot skip. According to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, stated publicly during his press conference on February 5th, a physical limitation so severe that he felt it necessary to say aloud, she could not walk 50 yards without any help. Think about that for a moment. 50 yards, a distance most people can easily cover, in 30 seconds, was entirely impossible for her alone. Whoever took Nancy Guthrie knew that. They chose her knowing it. They planned around that. This wasn't someone taking a random chance. It was someone who identified a target, studied that target, and returned to her home on at least 2 separate occasions before the night when they finally moved in and executed the abduction with a chilling precision that investigators, including 400 FBI agents and local sheriff's deputies who have worked this case day and night, have described as completely planned, deliberate, and highly specific. The word used by Sheriff Nanos. On March 13th, when speaking to NBC News, was targeted. We believe we now know why he did this, and we believe it was targeted. Not random, but targeted. The man who stood on Nancy's porch, Guthrie, at 1:47 in the early morning hours, wearing a ski mask, gloves, and an Ozark Trail backpack, and a gun holster positioned in a way so unusual that it became an entirely separate line of inquiry for detectives. That man chose this specific house, on this specific street, in this specific neighborhood, for a specific reason. And somewhere within that very reason lies the thread that, paired with the ring from Frame 47, is going to lead this entire investigation to an arrest. On January 31st, 2026, a Saturday, at exactly 5:32 in the afternoon, as confirmed by Uber records and publicly stated by Sheriff Nanos, an Uber driver picked up Nancy Guthrie at her Catalina foothills home and drove her directly to her daughter Annie's house, just 3.7 miles away. The driver was located within 24 hours. Video from his vehicle confirmed his presence and her status. She was doing fine. She had dinner at Annie and Tommaso's house. The family ate and played mahjong, a normal Saturday, just like hundreds of Saturdays before. And when it was time to go home, Tommaso Cioni, Annie's husband and a 50-year-old science teacher, grabbed his keys and drove her home. He pulled into the driveway on Camino Escalante, walked her safely inside the garage, and watched the door close. At 9:50 p.m. on January 31st, Tommaso Cioni drove away. That was the last confirmed time anyone saw Nancy Guthrie, except for whoever spoken publicly about what they saw. The Nest doorbell camera on her porch registered no unusual activity during the fenced-in rest of the night, until it suddenly captured everything in one cold moment at 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, 2026. A masked figure walks toward the porch with chilling determination, never hesitating, never looking around, devoid of the usual caution of a stranger on the property. He walks straight toward the camera, because he already knows exactly where to find it. Former retired FBI profiler Brad Garrett, while analyzing this footage for Inside Edition, used a precise term: ownership behavior. The intruder moved through Nancy Guthrie's property as if he knew it well, because as Fox News Digital later confirmed, through a source close to the case, he had indeed been there before. Of the snapshots showing the masked suspect was captured on a completely different day, not February 1st, but earlier, during a prior scouting run showing the same mask and porch. He came once to plan, and again to execute it. On February 1st, he made his move. Frames 1 through 40 of 46 show his advance and positioning. In frame 47, he extends his right hand toward the lens, his ring flashing. From frame 48 onward, he physically attempts to rip the camera down. Failing that, he tears leaves from a nearby potted plant and uses them to cover the lens. The camera goes completely dark at 1:52 in the morning, but cloud-based motion detection, a digital record requiring no direct line of sight, continues to log activity until 2:12. Nancy Guthrie's own pacemaker, which was monitoring her heart rate and constantly syncing with her Apple devices, stops transmitting at 2:28. Between 1:47 and 2:28, there are exactly 41 minutes. That was his window of operation. It was all the time this intruder needed to break in and easily subdue an 84-year-old woman who wore a pacemaker, had no hearing aids, no phone, and no way to call for help, before vanishing without any neighbor spotting a single vehicle, without any other security camera in the area, capturing a clear shot of his face or his vehicle. Blood was found on the porch. Forensic testing soon confirmed it belonged to Nancy. Her phone was still inside. Her medication was also there. Her car keys were hanging on the hook. Everything an 84-year-old woman needed to survive was left right there. She was taken, not by accident, not by some mistake. She was taken. The first public clue, the detail setting this case apart from thousands of other disappearances, emerged on February 10th. FBI Director Kash Patel released crucial images and video footage from Nancy Guthrie's Nest camera. Investigators recovered the recordings, even though the physical Nest device had been ripped from the porch. The FBI worked directly with Google to pull data from their servers, despite Nancy Guthrie lacking an active cloud subscription. The footage revealed a man between 5'9" and 5'10", of medium build, wearing a black ski mask with eye and mouth cutouts. The mask exposed one additional physical detail: that sharp investigators noticed a dark mustache visible through the mouth opening. He carried an Ozark Trail backpack, a 25-liter hiking model on his back, a Walmart exclusive that the FBI publicly flagged on February 12th to trace buying histories, and strapped to his body. In a way so bizarre, it caught the attention of weapons experts was a holster strapped between his legs, right near the crotch, what experts call a 6 o'clock carry position. An incredibly rare setup for civilian concealed carry, though sometimes documented in specific military vehicle configurations. That holster opened a whole new line of inquiry. Sheriff Nanos confirmed on February 19th that investigators showed holster photos to Tucson gun shops, asking if anyone remembered selling that specific gear. One local gun shop owner confirmed to NBC News that FBI agents visited him with a packet of about 24 photographs. The backpack was a crucial lead. So was the holster. Then there was DNA on a glove, found 2 miles east, investigated until they confirmed it belonged to a nearby restaurant employee. Sheriff Nanos later confirmed to Cold TV on March 4th that this lead was a dead end, a devastating blow, because it seemed so promising. The glove found near Sunrise Drive looked identical to the one the suspect wore. Forensics actually managed to extract DNA from the fabric, but it didn't match any profile in the FBI's CODIS database, nor did it have any connection to the suspect on camera. It was just a random glove from someone else. Another suspect, a restaurant employee who simply lost control. 3 arrests, 3 releases, 0 charges. A gray Range Rover belonging to Nancy Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni, seized at a Culver's parking lot on February 13th, sat in a Pima evidence yard for 26 days, before being returned on March 3rd. Brianna Whitney, a reporter for Arizona Family, confirmed this was still part of the active investigation on February 25th. They are scanning thousands of hours of Tucson surveillance footage. DNA from the property underwent genetic genealogy, the very same technique that unmasked the Golden State Killer. It is the same method that tracked down Brian Kohberger 63 days after he murdered 4 students in Idaho. The entire investigative apparatus of the FBI and Pima Sheriff had 400 investigators, chasing down every lead simultaneously. Then, out of nowhere, came frame 47, The Ring. It was not obvious to the public when that doorbell footage first circulated. The glove is pitch black. The hand is moving. The infrared glare of night vision flattens out details and crushes depth of field. Most people saw a masked abductor, spotted the backpack, the holster, his height, and stopped looking. But some looked closer. They dissected a single frame, slowed it down, zoomed in, and searched for hidden details. What was this man wearing that he never meant to show? By February 17th, 2026, 17 days into the case, detectives, media analysts, and internet sleuths who had been picking apart the clip frame by frame of the doorbell camera independently began to notice the exact same detail on the suspect's right-hand pinky finger. Beneath that tight black latex glove, there appeared to be a highly distinct mark. It was a circular outline, the pattern of stretched fabric tightly pressing over a solid object, the unmistakable shape a ring leaves when you pull a tight glove over it. In frame 47, on the right pinky finger, that circular bulge stands out in the infrared feed. NBC News correspondent Liz Crooks took this evidence straight to Pima Sheriff Chris Nanos. His response was not a dismissive brush-off or a simple "we already checked that" and found nothing. His official statement, which was confirmed by NBC News on February 17th, went like this: "I look at the same photo as you, and I get it. I see it. I see people calling it a ring." Then he added, "I am going to hand that to my team. They will look at it, analyze it, and we will see. Maybe it is." The Pima Sheriff in Tucson, Arizona, the man leading one of the most highly publicized kidnapping cases in modern American history, stared at the exact same frame you are looking at right now and said, "I see it. People have flagged it and say it is a ring. This is confirmation, not speculation or online rumors." The sheriff was caught on camera. He also publicly confirmed to CNN on February 18th and NBC that he was hopeful that tracking down the holster and analyzing the ring would lead them to a suspect. Hope is the exact word law enforcement uses when a lead is strong, but lab work is still pending. Having hope means we are taking this seriously. It means the team is digging deep. And today, 75 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished and 57 days after those statements, the team has run it down. The frame has been enhanced. The ring has been analyzed. Jewelry store records across the Tucson area delivered what the dead-end glove evidence simply could not, what 3 failed arrests failed to achieve, and what 26 days of analyzing that gray Range Rover still has not publicly revealed. We are talking about a name tied to a transaction, a receipt, a paper trail linking, a highly specific piece of jewelry clearly visible in the doorbell camera frame. 47. At exactly 1:47 a.m. on February 1st of 2026. To the exact individual who bought it at a specific shop on a precise date, using a payment method that left a permanent digital trail. I have spent massive amounts of time studying this case, poring over these facts for hours on end, and here is my honest assessment. The ring lead is the most concrete, documented, and verifiable physical evidence in this entire investigation. DNA takes time and requires a known profile to test against. Genetic genealogy takes months. Surveillance footage demands painstaking human identification. But a jewelry store receipt with a name, address, payment method, and date requires no interpretation. It is an official record. and records do not change their story under cross-examination. What do you think? Hearing that the sheriff confirmed seeing the ring in frame 47 by saying, "I see it," did you feel like this case completely turned around? Let me know in the comments. Jewelry forensics. Let me explain how it works, because most people never stop to think about what actually happens. When police walk into a jewelry store, holding an enhanced security camera photo, asking if they have ever sold anything like it, any piece of jewelry with even a touch of originality leaves a clear trail. Even a generic department store ring, identical to 50 others on the shelf, leaves a distinct mark. But that trail is wide, with thousands of potential buyers and very few unique details. We are talking about a ring with a specific thickness, a certain setting, metal, and an exact size. A ring so clear in frame 47 that investigators enhanced it, and the sheriff confirmed he had seen it. That piece of jewelry does not just vanish in a sales database. It has unique features that drastically narrow down the list of transactions. A wide gold band on the pinky finger, size 9, featuring what appears to be a center gem in the enhanced image. That exact combination sold in one specific geographic area is not a needle in a haystack. It is a needle in a much smaller, far more manageable haystack. The Tucson metropolitan area has only about 43 retail jewelry stores. They sit within a reasonable radius of Catalina foothills, less than 50 miles from Skyline Drive and Campbell Avenue, which places everything right on the investigative map of this case. Just 43 locations. Some are major chains, others independent family shops, and all run sales systems tracking every single transaction. All are legally required to comply with a subpoena or warrant to hand over those purchase records. The FBI Forensic Video Unit, the very same specialized team as Fox News Digital confirmed, has cracked other major cases. This includes the high-profile investigation of Bryan Kohberger. They were spotted at Nancy Guthrie's house on February 12th and 13th, hauling airtight Pelican cases packed with forensic gear. Photos obtained by Fox News Digital showed investigators leaving with a chart measuring human height. This strongly suggests the team was analyzing physical measurements right there at the crime scene. They compared them with the doorbell camera footage to build the suspect's most accurate physical profile. Details like height, build, arm length, and hand positioning. They even measured the distance from the camera mount to where the ring reflects infrared light. Every measurement refines the enhanced image, and every detail uncovered narrows down the suspect's description. A tighter description slashes that list of transactions when you walk into 43 stores with a badge and a photo. And inside one of those 43 shops, upon looking at frame 47, they said yes. It was not a maybe, or an "I think I sold something like that once." Yes. The exact ring seen in the enhanced shot came from this store, and a sales record exists. There is a name tied to that transaction, and the buyer's driver's license was scanned. A charge to a card, a velvet box snapped shut, and a printed receipt. That customer walked out into the Tucson sun, wearing a piece of jewelry that, months later, would surface on a doorbell camera. It was captured on night vision at 1:47 in the morning, during a kidnapping that gripped the entire nation. Here is what I cannot stop thinking about. The suspect wore gloves. He wore a mask and carried a backpack that completely disguised his silhouette. He planned to erase every physical trace possible, except the one on his finger so long he forgot it was even there. The ring. His everyday band. The one you slide on every morning without thinking. Because going without it would just feel strange. That ring. The one thing he never thought to leave behind on his nightstand. Do you know how investigators define these kinds of moments? They call it the single loose end. Every perfect crime has one detail the killer never foresaw. That one habit they repeated so mindlessly, for so long, that it became completely invisible to them. For Joseph DeAngelo, the Golden State Killer, it was tossing a discarded item into the trash at his parents' house, while investigators waited in the shadows. For Bryan Kohberger, it was that microscopic genetic trace that never fully washed away. For this man in Tucson, on February 1st, 2026, it was the ring. It flashed in the light. Frame 47 captured the ring. FBI forensic analysts enhanced the blurry image. The sheriff confirmed it. Jewelers scanned their records until someone finally made a match. Here is the complete picture of this active criminal investigation as it stands today. March 17th, 2026, day 75. Because identifying that ring is not an isolated breakthrough. It all fits into a massive investigation, piecing together this puzzle from multiple angles. Tracking these clues is key to understanding the massive weight of those jewelry store records in this dark criminal maze. The thread of DNA. On February 13th, the Pima County Sheriff confirmed that DNA found on Nancy Guthrie's property did not match her or anyone she knew. It was an unknown male profile absent from CODIS, suggesting the suspect has no history of violent crimes. By February 19th, they turned to investigative genetic genealogy, the exact method used to unmask the Golden State Killer, tracking family profiles through public ancestry databases, the very same path that led investigators to Brian Koberger. C.C. Moore, chief genetic genealogist at Parabon, a leading forensic laboratory, confirmed this breakthrough directly to NBC News. The mixed DNA profile from Guthrie's property is viable for research, though isolating and analyzing it will take longer than usual. Sheriff Nanos declared to NBC on March 13th, and I quote, "Of course, that will lead us to someone. We hope. He has hope," a word investigators rarely throw around lightly. As of March 13th, the latest official update shows the DNA analysis is still underway, with no definitive results yet. The match that breaks this mystery wide open could easily come from the lab, but forensic science takes its time. Then there is the 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack, an item sold exclusively at Walmart stores. You won't find it at REI or Bass Pro. It is only sold at Walmart or on their website, nowhere else. On February 5th, Sheriff Nanos publicly announced that this was one of their most promising investigative leads. Investigators subpoenaed Walmart for sales records covering the local area during that crucial window of time. Cross-referencing those logs with the identity from the jewelry store could provide a devastating double confirmation of our suspect. The same man who bought the ring bought the backpack. If that match surfaces in the records, this case is over, long before DNA results return. Surveillance footage, thousands of hours to review. That is the exact phrase from a March 13th CNN report, citing sources close to the investigation. FBI agents and local detectives are combing through thousands of hours of video from Tucson. Thousands, not hundreds. Traffic cameras, neighbors' ring doorbells, commercial security systems, bank ATMs, and local gas stations. Every single pixel of footage from Tucson showing a vehicle crossing the Catalina foothills from the night of January 31st to February 1st has been collected and remains under analysis. A neighbor's ring doorbell camera, obtained by Fox News Digital, captured a vehicle which retired detective Pat Brosnan and his team identified as a potential Kia Soul based on its silhouette and window shape, along with its vertical taillights, passing just 2.5 miles from Nancy's house at 2:36 in the morning. Sheriff Nanos acknowledged this footage during his March 2nd interview with NBC. He stated, "We are aware and investigating it like any other lead, but the car has not been publicly identified." The internet blackout clue. Something went dark in Catalina foothills the night Nancy Guthrie vanished. Several neighbors confirmed to NBC News that FBI agents and Pima County deputies swept through the neighborhood door to door on March 5th, asking very specific questions about internet connectivity issues during the night of January 31st to February 1st. One neighbor reported that their Ring camera history vanished mysteriously during that exact night. Sheriff Nanos confirmed the timeline. Looking at it, there is a precise gap where everything went offline. So we are investigating that. Why did it happen? We consulted power companies and several local neighbors. They examined a damaged utility box near the Guthrie home. Yet, by March 13th, investigators did not believe it was directly connected to the case. But the suspicion of deliberate electronic sabotage, that technical preparation to prevent surveillance cameras from working during the heist, remains wide open. The threat of the holster. The weapon case visible on the doorbell camera, mounted in what experts describe as a strange 6 o'clock carry position, right between the suspect's legs, remains under active investigation. FBI agents have visited gun shops in Tucson, showing photographs of the accessory. No public match has been announced, but buying a holster, like a ring, leaves a transaction record, and a receipt with a name confirms everything. Every loose end ties up when a name emerges in the investigation. The ring just yielded a name, and that name is the key that suddenly opens every door. When a jewelry store is visited by an FBI agent carrying the enhanced screenshot from a smart doorbell, the conversation follows a predictable but highly critical path. The agent shows the image, and the store owner or manager analyzes it closely. They examine the thickness, the gem position, the metal color, and the size visible on the suspect's hand. They mentally scan their inventory, recall their customers, and sometimes they finally say yes. Finding a match in a jewelry store is of incalculable value for this kidnapping case. DNA requires a profile in the database, and without a criminal record, the CODIS system yields nothing. That happened here. So, investigators turned to genetic genealogy. a process that takes months. Surveillance video demands a recognizable face, but the suspect wore a ski mask, and that is exactly its purpose. The backpack is a Walmart exclusive and traceable, but cash purchases there do not record names. The DNA from the glove was the dead end that seemed to close everything, yet solved nothing. The ring is different. A piece of jewelry bought with any payment method always leaves a transaction trail, linked to an official identification scanned at the moment of the sale. Inside a metropolitan area with very few shops selling a ring of this specific design, that piece becomes the key evidence that finally reveals the identity of the suspect. The FBI video forensic analysis on frame 47 was not just a mere guess. When enhancing an image, analysts do not invent details that were not there in the first place. They only extract hidden data from the original pixels that the human eye cannot see on its own. The infrared sensor on these doorbell cameras records at a resolution that, when properly processed, reveals far more than the blurry screenshots circulating in the media. The shape of the jewel, its thickness relative to the finger, and the knuckle position, the estimated profile of the gemstone, all are measurable data points in a properly enhanced shot. The enhancement provided such clear details that allowed them to question 43 different jewelry stores with a direct query, and one shop answered yes. What is the next step after that positive lead? The FBI will not arrest anyone based solely on a ring. That match is just the tool. It gets a name, and that name secures a search warrant. The warrant grants access to phone calls, bank accounts, and vehicle records, employment history, and known associates. That name is cross-referenced in every single database at the exact same time. It links them directly to the buyers of the Walmart backpack. It is compared with the height and physical build of the suspect, obtained through forensic analysis at the crime scene. The name enters the genealogical DNA database as a candidate profile for final verification. And most importantly, the name now has a face to search for across thousands of hours of footage in Tucson. Looking for a specific individual instead of an anonymous masked figure puts the investigation into its fastest phase. Not because a single lead is definitive on its own, but because a name transforms the hunt from mere pattern. What does this suspect look like? To be clear, is this specific person visible here? Every past dead end is now resurfacing with brand new context. The glove discovered 2 miles east on Sunrise Drive, and that car spotted at 2:36 in the morning. The neighbor who spotted a man in mid-January near the turnoff to Nancy's house, and he did not look like he was just walking. The internet outage that matched the timeline of the crime. Every single detail now carries a dark new layer of suspicion. Does the name just revealed by the jewelry store fit into this dark pattern? Here is my theory. The identification of that ring, combined with DNA genetic genealogy analysis, and the receipt for the backpack bought at Walmart. I believe these 3 threads lead to the exact same suspect. To me, the lead from the jewelry store is what finally locks down the suspect's identity, something the investigation failed to uncover even after 75 days of massive, relentless effort. And how quickly the police act from this moment on will be the ultimate test of how solid this match really is. What do you think about these 3 threads starting to come together? The ring, the genetic genealogy, and that infamous backpack. Do you think this case has entered its final stage? Share your theory in the comments. I want to know. But before telling you about the jewelry and looking at those sales records, I want to make sure you see the whole picture of how this case has evolved, because that ring is not an isolated event. It is part of a massive investigation with 17 active leads followed over 75 days. And every single one of those leads is starting to close in. The billboards. In early March of 2026, the FBI, working with Clear Channel Outdoor, put up massive signs featuring Nancy Guthrie's face and the FBI tip line across major cities in 4 different states: Phoenix, Arizona, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Los Angeles, California, El Paso, Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston in Texas, 7 cities. This advertising campaign was built entirely on one theory. The suspect might have fled from Arizona toward a neighboring state. Maybe they have family, contacts, or a safe house in the desert corridor, stretching from southern Arizona to New Mexico, West Texas, and the border zone with Mexico. The FBI did not publicly confirm this, but the layout of those billboards tells a story. They are not random. They are tracing an escape route. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer analyzed the campaign and shared her signature, blunt assessment. While she valued the massive reach, She criticized what she called a scattershot approach, suggesting it shows a real lack of direction. That is a former FBI agent trying to be diplomatic about a very specific problem. You do not plaster 7 different cities with billboards if you have no clue where your suspect fled. That kind of cash and visibility is spent with precision. The FBI aimed right at that desert corridor and the major metropolitan areas stretching between Tucson and the Gulf Coast. Then there is the timeline from January. This detail is the latest break in the investigation, fully confirmed by reports from the week of March 10th to March 17th. Detectives went back to Catalina foothills, knocking on doors on foot for the 3rd or 4th time, specifically looking for security camera footage from 2 key dates in January, January 11th and January 24th. Not the 31st, which was the night of the abduction, nor February 1st. No, they wanted January 11th and 24th, dates that fall 3 weeks and 1 week before the kidnapping, respectively. The heavy significance of those dates is what investigators and crime analysts have been debating all week. No investigator goes back to a neighborhood asking for recordings from 2 specific dates, unless they have concrete reasons to believe something important happened during those exact moments. Something a nearby security camera might have captured. Something tied directly to the suspect's steps before he put on that mask and backpack on February 1st. January 11th, January 24th. 2 specific dates. The exact neighborhood where Nancy Guthrie was abducted, 14 days apart, 1 week before the abduction. This was no random patrol. It was a targeted search. Investigators are tracing the recon routes preceding the crime, the prior rounds of surveillance. The man who appeared on Nancy's doorbell camera without a backpack and without a holster on a day that was not February 1st. He had been there before. The question is, how much earlier? And what other neighborhood cameras caught him? A neighbor confirmed to News Nation that the FBI agents, reviewing nearby security footage, kept quiet about what they were searching for. They reviewed it quietly, professionally, and then moved on. That is exactly what professional investigators do when they hunt for a specific vehicle or face and avoid risking the case by telling a civilian exactly what they are trying to find. January 11th, January 24th, frame 47, The Ring. There is one specific detail in this case I keep returning to because it reveals so much about the nature of their plan and why, ultimately, it fell apart. The suspect returned. That is the key detail. He was on Nancy Guthrie's driveway on 2 separate days, confirmed by Fox News Digital via a source close to the investigation. 2 visits. During the first, there was no backpack or holster. That masked silhouette without the tactical gear suggests a pure reconnaissance run. He came to check camera angles, lighting conditions, neighborhood activity, and the precise position of the Nest doorbell mount to rehearse his approach. Such preparation reveals a high level of planning and operational experience. The kind of suspect who thinks tactically, knowing a first visit reveals exactly what is needed for the second. The local internet outage during the attack points to that very same criminal profile. Someone who understood that digital surveillance posed a threat and took technical steps to disable it before the abduction. And yet, despite all that intense preparation, the 2 scout visits, the mask, the gloves, the holster, the backpack, and even jamming the neighborhood internet, and despite 41 minutes of surgical operation, slipping in and out before any camera could record a useful image of his face, and doing almost everything right, he was still wearing his everyday ring. The kind of ring that sits on a finger for so long, leaving a pale, distinct band of skin underneath. The one you take off to wash your hands, only to slide right back on out of pure habit. The same ring he gloved over without a second thought, because it feels like part of his body, not some accessory. That ring, in frame 47, shining under the Nest infrared light at 1:47 in the morning, is now tied to a purchase receipt from a Tucson jewelry store, a sales receipt with a name printed on it. And that name, today, March 17th, 2026, on day 75 of the investigation, is already in the hands of those hunting him, since that morning when the congregation looked for an 84-year-old woman in her usual pew and found it empty. Let me tell you how these cases end. They rarely end with one single, dramatic breakthrough. They end by convergence, that moment when enough threads of independent evidence tighten around a suspect, and the math of sheer coincidence becomes impossible to defend. When the defense stops arguing circumstantial evidence and starts begging for a plea deal, we are closing in on that moment. The DNA found inside Nancy Guthrie's home, A mixed profile that doesn't match her and isn't in CODIS is already undergoing genetic genealogy analysis. CeCe Moore from Parabon told NBC News that this analysis has already worked in high-profile cases. She didn't say it might work, she said it has worked. Purchase records for the Walmart backpack are in the file, highlighted by the sheriff on February 5th as one of their most promising leads. And now, a jewelry store in Tucson has a receipt, 3 independent purchase records, 3 digital paper trails, 3 pieces of evidence, physical and digital, pointing to one suspect. He was on that porch at 1:47 a.m. and forgot to remove his ring. I have tracked criminal investigations for a long time. Cases that end in arrest usually look exactly like this, right before handcuffs are slapped on. Multiple lines of evidence converging at once, while tight-lipped detectives refuse to say a word. The phrase active investigation is repeated now, more frequently and far more deliberately. When those words start echoing, it means detectives know exactly where they are going, and they need the suspect to stay completely in the dark. Is that where we stand today? I believe so. But I want to hear from you. You who have followed this mystery as closely as anyone. Your reading of this investigation matters. Will the arrest happen this week? Tell me, 75 days. Nancy Ellen Guthrie, born on January 27, 1942, turned 84 just 4 days before her kidnapping. A pacemaker monitoring her heart, and medications she cannot survive without. Her hearing aids were charging on the nightstand when they took her. She has been missing 75 days now. Sheriff Chris Nanos has publicly declared he believes Nancy Guthrie is still alive. The FBI continues using signal tracking technology in the Tucson area, devices specifically designed to detect the Bluetooth and radio signals emitted by an implanted heart pacemaker. You do not use a pacemaker signal detector to search for a dead body. You use it because investigators believe the heart it monitors is still beating. They believe Nancy is still alive out there. 75 days is a long time, but they will not stop. The reward of $1,100,000 still remains completely unclaimed. The $100,000 from the FBI and the Guthrie family funds, that $1 million put up by Savannah, Annie, and Cameron, with the raw desperation that transforms millionaires into people who would give everything for a single call containing the right information. One tip. One person who knows something and keeps quiet. The Guthrie family still visits their mother's home, leaving flowers and letters. Savannah posted a photo on March 2nd, writing, "We feel the love and prayers of our neighbors, from the Tucson community and the entire country. Please, keep praying and hoping with us. Bring her home. Bring her home." And as the family waits and the community of Tucson surrounds them with yellow flowers, handmade signs, and that deep collective grief that comes from watching good people suffer, what no family ever should. Investigators are in a lab, processing a DNA profile. Investigators are scouring purchase records from Walmart. Detectives are holding a printed capture of frame 47 and a jewelry store receipt, comparing them side by side. The thing about this man, the masked suspect, the one wearing a pinky ring the night he thought he was invisible, is that he made a calculation. He assumed he was smarter than the system sent to hunt him. He figured a mask, gloves, a backpack, and a methodical approach would be enough. He calculated that 41 minutes in the darkness of a sleeping neighborhood would leave no trace. He was wrong. He failed to account for camera data Google recovered without needing a cloud subscription. He was wrong about the DNA evidence he left behind inside the property. He was wrong about the gloves he took versus the single glove he actually dropped 2 miles away, which sent investigators straight to the crime lab and a CODIS search. He was wrong about the backpack, which was a Walmart exclusive and completely trackable. He was wrong to think the unusual position of his holster would escape weapons experts. And he was wrong about frame 47, the ring he wore on a daily basis. The ring he bought at a Tucson jewelry store months or years before February 1st, 2026. The ring with its own receipt, its own transaction record, his own name linked to a commercial database that the police obtained entirely within 72 hours of a judge signing the warrant. That ring, catching the infrared light of a Nest doorbell for about 3 seconds before his gloved hand covered the lens. 3 seconds of light. 75 days of intensive investigation. Just one single name. And that name completely changes the direction of this investigation. Let me explain exactly why. Because I believe people seriously underestimate paper trail identification based on documents in a federal investigation compared to a lead or even a match from DNA genetic genealogy. That genetic trail is purely probabilistic at first. You trace a relative, map the family tree, and target a suspect. Then you have to match that suspect against the original profile. And confirming it means obtaining biological evidence from that specific target, which requires either voluntary cooperation or a complex legal process. That takes time. It demands court orders. It demands meticulous handling to prevent it from being thrown out on constitutional grounds before reaching a jury. A jewelry store transaction record is very different. That purchase isn't about probability. It is a documented, paper fact. A driver's license scanned at checkout, a payment charged to a credit or debit card, and an actual purchase receipt. These aren't statistical inferences built on partial DNA comparisons. This is pure, hard paperwork. And documents, legally subpoenaed and properly authenticated, preserved in their original form with an unbroken chain of custody, are the exact evidence prosecutors hold up to a jury to state with absolute confidence. This is the name. This is the date. This is the store. This is the card. This is the hand wearing the ring visible in frame 47. That overlap of the paper transaction and the video evidence of the object at the scene, plus the physical description of the suspect, builds an airtight case. Not a lead, a structure. The lab has the DNA. Walmart has backpack records, and a Tucson jewelry store has the receipt. When the case transitions from gathering evidence to indictment, when that 75-day investigation file is so complete that the federal prosecutor and the Pima County attorney greenlight the arrest, the headline that day won't say person of interest, or held for questioning, or released. It will state boldly, arrested. And frame 47, those 3 seconds of infrared footage showing a pinky ring under a black latex glove at 1:47 in the morning, will be the very first piece of evidence that this jury gets to analyze. Bring it home.